Being lonely damages your body at roughly the rate of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That is not a figure of speech. It is not a slogan someone dreamed up to get attention. It comes from a meta-analysis of 308,849 people published in 2010 by Julianne Holt-Lundstad and her colleagues. Loneliness raises your risk of dying early by 26 to 29%, more dangerous than obesity, more dangerous than being sedentary, roughly the same category of harm as long-term smoking. The evidence is airtight, and it has only grown stronger in the years since. The U.S. Surgeon General issued a formal advisory on it in 2023. The United Kingdom appointed a minister for loneliness back in 2018. This is not a fringe idea anymore. It is accepted public health. I have lived 98 years. I have watched friends die from this, not from being alone. A person can live alone and thrive. And I have known women who did beautifully well into their 90s, from feeling alone, from the slow, quiet disconnection that eats at a body the way a leak rots a house from the inside. If that statistic doesn't trouble you, I am not sure which one will. To understand why loneliness is that dangerous, you have to understand what your body thinks is happening when you feel it. The late John Cacioppo spent his career arguing that loneliness is not a mood. It is a biological alarm, the same kind of alarm your body sounds when you are hungry or thirsty, a signal designed over millions of years to keep you from being separated from the tribe, because in our ancestors' world, separation from the group meant death. By predator, by exposure. There was no such thing as a safe solo human. Your brain still assumes that is the world you live in. In 2020, researchers at MIT, Livia Tomova and Rebecca Sachs, put this to a direct test. They compared brain scans of people after 10 hours of food fasting to scans of the same people after 10 hours of total social isolation. The same region lit up. The same dopamine craving circuit in the midbrain. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference between not eating and not being around other humans. The craving is the same. And there is more. When someone excludes you, leaves you out of a message thread, walks past without saying hello, picks someone else first, the brain areas that fire are the exact same ones that fire when you break a bone. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, social pain and physical pain share the same neural real estate. This is not weakness. This is not sadness. This is your ancient survival system screaming that something has gone wrong, that you have been cut off from the tribe, and your body is preparing for consequences it cannot name. And here is the cruel part. The part almost nobody talks about. Chronic loneliness does not just hurt. It rewires how you see other people. When your brain has been registering isolation for weeks or months, it shifts into what scientists call hypervigilance. It starts scanning for threats, because in the ancestral world, a person separated from the group was prey, and prey had to watch every rustle in the grass. So the lonely brain begins to misread faces. A neutral expression looks hostile. A kind word feels like pity. A polite smile from the grocery clerk feels like condescension. In 2014, Manira Bangi and her colleagues used eye-tracking technology to measure this directly. Lonely young adults, within the first 2 seconds of looking at a scene, fix their eyes on socially threatening stimuli faster than anyone else. The brain was unconsciously hunting for rejection, bracing for the blow. And when you brace for the blow, you flinch. You pull away. You answer too sharply. You stop calling first. You convince yourself nobody wants to hear from you anyway. I have watched this happen to people I loved. I have watched widowed friends, within a year of losing a husband, become prickly. defensive, suspicious of invitations, quick to read slights into ordinary silences. I have watched them push away the very people who were still trying to show up, the daughter-in-law, the old coworker, the neighbor across the hall. And then I have watched them blame themselves when the phone finally stopped ringing. It wasn't character. It was their nervous system acting exactly the way evolution designed it to, and it was destroying them in the process. Underneath all of this, something is happening to your cells. Steve Cole at UCLA has spent 2 decades mapping it. He calls it the conserved transcriptional response to adversity, CTRA for short. When the brain registers chronic loneliness, it flips a specific set of genetic switches. It cranks up the genes that drive inflammation, because an isolated animal in the wild is about to get wounded, and it shuts down the genes that fight viruses, because an isolated animal is far from the tribe and unlikely to catch anything airborne. That was useful on the savannah. In a modern apartment, it is a catastrophe. Your body prepares day after day for wounds that never come. The inflammation simmers. It degrades your arteries. It irritates your joints. It accelerates nearly every disease of aging. Meanwhile, your defenses against actual viruses sit half disabled. In 2024, a meta-analysis combined data from 608,561 people across 21 studies. Loneliness raised the risk of all-cause dementia by 31%, Alzheimer's disease by 39%, vascular dementia, the kind driven by damage to the small vessels of the brain, by 73%, even after controlling for depression and for objective social contact. And here is the quiet kicker, the one that keeps me up at night. Subjective loneliness, the feeling of being disconnected, does roughly twice as much cellular damage as objective isolation. That means you can live completely alone in a cabin in the woods and thrive if you feel connected to something. And you can be married, employed, surrounded by children and coworkers, and still decay from the inside. Now, here is the part that will surprise you. When most people picture loneliness, they picture someone like me, an old woman in a quiet house looking out a window. But that is not where the crisis lives anymore. The 2025 World Happiness Report, drawing on the work of Jamil Zaki and Rui Pei at Stanford, reported something that stopped a lot of researchers cold. Young adults are now almost twice as likely to report feeling lonely as people over 65. The historical shape of happiness across a human life, once a gentle U, with the old and the young both content, and a dip in middle age, has flattened into a line that points the wrong way. Gen Z is the loneliest generation alive. The reasons are different. For older adults like me, it tends to be structural. A spouse dies, a driver's license gets surrendered, a knee gives out, and the stairs down to the garden become impossible. The world physically shrinks. For younger adults, the world has not shrunk. It has been hollowed out. The cafes, the parks, the libraries, the neighborhood pubs, the bowling alleys, what the sociologist Ray Oldenburg called third places, the low-stakes, unplanned spaces where connection used to happen by accident without anyone scheduling it, have been quietly engineered out of daily life, replaced by drive-thrus, delivery apps, self-checkouts, algorithmic feeds that promise connection and deliver performance. My honest read, speaking as a woman who has seen a century of change, scrolling is not connection. My generation knew that instinctively, because we had nothing else. Yours is learning it the hard way, on a timeline your nervous systems cannot afford. So what do? This is the part that matters, and it is the part most advice gets wrong. The usual prescription, just get out there. Go to a mixer, meet people, fails. It has been studied. In 2011, Christopher Massey and colleagues reviewed the entire intervention literature on loneliness. The programs that simply increased opportunities for social contact, community mixers, networking events, meet and greets, produced the weakest results of any category. The reason is the hypervigilance I described earlier. If you drop a lonely brain into a room of strangers, it does not relax. It searches the room for threats. It reads every unattended smile as rejection. People go home feeling worse than when they arrived. What works about 4 times better is shared purpose. Community gardens, choirs, volunteer crews, repair projects. Anything where you and another person are focused on a task together, side by side, hands busy, eyes on the work instead of on each other. The hypervigilance drops away because the nervous system is no longer being asked to read faces. It is being asked to pull a weed, hold a note, hand over a wrench. Connection becomes a byproduct, not the goal. The United Kingdom has built an entire medical framework around this. It is called social prescribing. General practitioners write referrals to community activities, the way they write referrals to specialists. 16 out of 17 systematic studies have shown it works. So here is what I would tell you specifically. First, call one person today. Not text, call. The human voice carries tone, breath, hesitation, all the biological cues that a text message strips out. Your body registers a voice differently than it registers a screen. Second, find one recurring activity that puts you around the same humans every week. Same people, same time, no pressure to perform. That is how trust actually gets built, through repetition, not intensity. Third, do something useful alongside someone, not just for them. Pulling weeds together beats delivering a casserole. Parallel purpose beats asymmetric charity. Every time, I want to end with something I need you to hear, and I need you to hear it at 98. Loneliness is not a character flaw. It is not evidence that you are unlovable, or boring, or too much, or too little. It is a signal. Treat it like hunger, not like shame. When you are hungry, you do not punish yourself for needing food. You eat. When you are lonely, you do not punish yourself for needing people. You reach. Most of the regrets I carry at this age, and I carry some, I will not pretend otherwise, are not about things I did. They are about people I let drift. The friend I kept meaning to call. The sister I assumed would always be there. The neighbor whose first name I learned too late. Connection is perishable. It requires tending, the way a garden does. And it gets harder to plant the longer you wait. The cigarette statistic scares people into quitting. Let this one scare you into calling someone back. Today, not tomorrow.